try and maybe look at what has been going on under ZANU-PF, Munyika, who has written a letter to Speaker of Parliament, Mudenda. He was recalling 70 ZANU-PF elected officials. And I quote, he says, they have been seized to be ZANU-PF members and therefore they have been recalled in terms of the laws of Zimbabwe. But if we are to wait and pause, are those processes of recall as we are witnessing informed by the Constitution of Zimbabwe? Why is it that in 2023 we are witnessing a high number of MPs and councillors recalled since 1980? When recalling, is it purely a party decision, or it should be a transparent and accountable process that observes the Constitution? And my other question, of course, would be, where is the voice of the electorate who voted for these elected officials to represent their constituencies? Are they not supposed to be included in this process? Are they not supposed to be participating during recall? All those questions are going to be responded to by my esteemed panel. That includes Farai Marapira, who's the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, that's ZANU-PF Information Director. We're also going to be helped to unpack this topic by Duduzile Matema, who's from the Bulawayo Progressive Residents Association, that's BUPRA. She's the communications officer there. And then we also have Promise Mkwananzi from the Citizen Coalition of Change, that's CCC spokesperson. Last but not least, we have Paida Moyo Muzulu, who's from the media, who's a media and economic governance officer from Veritas. I'd like to welcome my speakers. If they are here and you're present, please request for the mic so that we give you access. And then we have our deep dive into today's topic. So I'm seeing here present, we have Bupra. I can also see familiar faces with Kosikona. We also have Decent Dube, who's going to be one of our discussants for today's panel discussion. Yeah, I see people did come out in numbers. So probably out of interest sake, I'll just want you to feel free to request the mic or also so that you make sure that you share your contribution. Let's not wait for the last minute and moment to air in your valuable contributions. So from my research, of course, as I was preparing for this panel discussion, I tried to look around what has been said on social media platforms and also what the Constitution says about the recall process. So from my research, I came across an amazing and really informative video piece by Themba Mliswa, where he was talking extensively about Section 129.1K of the Constitution, and he was arguing, saying that it gives the political party power to recall, but then the party can recall you, but it does not mention who in the party can recall you. So he was highlighting that actually that's a gap because it's open. The party, anyone can actually recall you, but it doesn't mention who exactly can recall. So as long as you're part of the party, or whether you have a title or not, by virtue of being part of the party, you can actually recall be it an MP or a councillor. And also of interest that what he said is that all the speakers has all that a speaker has to do is to give a notice in terms of who is supposed to be recalled. So the question then is this what the Constitution says? I think it would be great that before we get into the deep end of the conversation, we establish if Section 129 stipulates that. So Paida from Veritas is the one who has the expertise of the Constitution and is going to help us unpack Section 129.1K so that we establish if the recall process is constitutional or not, and why are we experiencing it this much in 2023 compared to other years since independence. Paida, I see you are here on the call. Do you mind requesting for the mic, and then you just give us a quick overview? I'm not sure, Paida, if you can hear me, but yeah, I've given you, I'm actually giving you the mic so that you give your your deliberation. All right, I see you're now a speaker, Paida. Please go ahead and just give us a quick overview of how the process of recall has been done generally in other countries. And then you also zero down into the Zimbabwean constitution, if this process is observing the constitutional section, that's section 129(1)K. Over to you, Paida Moyo.
Thank you, Batabile. Good morning, colleagues and everyone listening. I think I should start by saying the history of the section, where the genesis of the section 129(1)K comes from. It comes from way back in 1989, when ZANU-PF wanted to get Edgar Tekere out of parliament because he was opposed to the one-party state which ZANU-PF then wanted to establish in Zimbabwe. So we find it as a tool which has been used since then by political parties to control or to whip their members to toe the line or the party line. And between 1989, the next time we see this piece of legislation being used is 2000, the year 2000, when Nyarap Kusai became the shortest, by then he became the shortest staying MP for Highfields, and he was recalled by the United MDC then on the basis of their differences on how to go about the land reform program, which Kusai did not agree with the MDC leadership. So he was recalled, and there was a by-election. I think that was 2001 to replace Kusai. So since then there was a Elu, and then we find more recalls coming in after the split of the MDCs, particularly after 2013 elections. We remember that when the PDP was formed and the Renewal Democratic of Zimbabwe was formed, a number of MPs, including Tendai Biti and others, were recalled by the MDCT then, and by-elections were called. We also noticed that after 2015, that's when ZANU-PF comes in back with its own recalls, where they recalled a number of people, including Didmat Mutasa, Temba Mliswa, and a number of MPs who were said to have been aligned with the Weevils or the Muturu faction of ZANU-PF. So all in all, we noticed that these recalls have been done to settle internal differences. And what is more important is after the 2018 elections, we recall that Douglas Monzora recalled 22 MPs from the MDC alliance based on their own agreement to settle the differences they had. And that led to the formation of the Triple C, which we have today. And now we have this Triple C, and they have their own internal divisions, and we see these letters being written again to recall people. But what has to be emphasized is the question that recalls are done by the party leadership to control its members in the National Assembly or in the local authorities, that they have to toe a certain party line. It is of interest that I should cite the Constitutional Court's judgment in Thokozani Kupe versus the MDC when she sued the Speaker of Parliament then and Mr. Morgan Committee when he was recalled just before the 2018 elections. It's a very interesting judgment in that the High Court then uses what the case of Madzimura and others versus the President of Senate and others, where I think you recall that earlier I had spoken about the divisions which happened when the MDCT broke into the PDP and the Renewed Democrats of Zimbabwe. So among the people who were expelled from parliament or recalled were Williams Madzimure and Tendai Biti, as I had mentioned earlier. And the court then, the Constitutional Court, said the purpose of Section 129 of the Constitution is to provide for the circumstances which the tenure of a seat of a member of parliament comes to an end. Section 129(1)(k) of the Constitution specifies one of the circumstances in which the tenure of a seat of a member of parliament comes to an end and the seat becomes vacant. Tenure of the seat of a member of parliament means the tenure of the right of a member of parliament to occupy the seat following an election. The provisions of Section 129(1)(k) of the Constitution may be summarized as being that A, the member of parliament should have been a member of a political party when he or she is elected to parliament. The member of parliament should have ceased to belong to a political party either by voluntary withdrawal of membership or by being expelled from the political party concerned. And the political party concerned should be given a written notice to the Speaker or the President of the Senate of the cessation of membership of it by the Member of Parliament. In the written notice, the political party concerned must declare that the Member of Parliament has ceased to belong to it. The role of the Speaker or the President of the Senate in this process leading to the creation of a vacancy in the seat of a Member of Parliament in terms of Section 129(1)(k) of the Constitution is facilitative. It is not judicial in nature. Close quote. So you find that this matter has been dealt with at length by our Constitutional Court, and it defines what has to happen. It does not specify. However, the salient point which we should make is it does not define who from the political party recalling should be. So generally, it's assumed that a political party has a structure and someone has the responsibility to recall. But more importantly, in this judgment earlier, it's also established that the immediate remedy a member of parliament so recalled can do is to make a high court application where they challenge the legality of the person or the local stand of the person who would have written the letter of withdrawal. That is why they will go and seek an interdict at the High Court to stop them from being expelled from parliament or ZEC from calling for a by-election.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Paida Moyo, for explaining to us the facets of Section 129(1)(k). And from what you have mentioned, I'm picking up that the section speaks about that one should be a member of the party when they are elected to be an MP, and one can only lose the position of being an MP either on voluntary basis or when a letter is written giving justifications to the reasons to why that person should be recalled. Am I correct?
I think you missed something there. Actually, the letter does not need to give specific reasons why the recall was done. It simply has to say the person has been expelled from our political party or has ceased to be a member of our political party without giving any details of what process would have taken place in that political party. So by simply writing
great.
that line...
Thank you for that clarity.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So by simply writing the line that so and so MP from this constituency has ceased to become a member of our political party, it's just enough for the speaker who has to satisfy himself that he has a genuine letter from a member of the political party concerned withdrawing or calling for the cessation of the membership of a certain MP elected. So the first thing is the speaker simply has to satisfy himself that this letter is official and it's coming from, and if he has satisfied himself whether correctly or wrongly, then he has to do what the law calls him to do, which is to read the notice and declare the seat vacant. Yeah.
All right. Just a quick follow-up before I give the other speakers an opportunity to contribute. I just want to make this clear before we have a deep dive into other submissions. So just building up on the submissions that you have given us, we have two representatives from two political parties, that's Sengizo Chabangu and Tafazwa Manika, who wrote letters recalling elected officials. So was that the constitutional procedure that they carried out? And there are also issues, maybe as you're responding to that, there are also issues that how is the matter going to be addressed? Because now there will seem to be a case that there are so many vacancies as at Parliament as a result of all these recalls. Is because there are concerns that maybe the only letter that's going to be taken seriously or considered is that coming from CCC, and the one coming from ZANU-PF might not be considered. Maybe a clarity on that, because you raise very critical issues that I feel they need to be ironed out so that we have a better understanding. Over to you, Paida.
Thank you. The overriding thing is the conduct of the speaker, and in this instance, the speaker, the Constitutional Court has said the speaker has to satisfy himself. And it's also said that the speaker is not making any judicial. His decision is not any judicial in nature, so he's not going to be weighing things and so forth. So once he's satisfied, which is an undefined term in this judgment, how he arrives at a position where he's satisfied that this is a genuine letter, and then he has to read it. So from that instance, but also knowing, which we are all aware of, that in the practical sense, Mr. Mudenda was put in as speaker at the instance of ZANU-PF, which nominated him. So definitely, if there is a letter coming from ZANU-PF, definitely he would know who in ZANU-PF has the authority to write a letter.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paida. I think that is clear. Your submissions are very clear. I would have liked Buphra to come into the picture following Paida, so that we find out from the community themselves, from the constituencies, because we are deliberately interested in the democratic rights of the masses. That's the constituencies who voted for this MP to represent them in Parliament, but then now they are recalled. It was going to be interesting to find out from Buphra the sentiments that are on the ground, what people are saying, in what way are they affected by this recall, because now there seems to be an announcement that there are all those vacancies at parliamentary level. I'm not sure if the Buphra account that I'm seeing here present is ready to comment. If not, probably I could pose the question to some of the participants that are here, because I strongly believe that you represent different constituencies in Zimbabwe. Buphra, are you ready to speak? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, because my guest Dudu, she's saying that she's facing technical challenges. So I thought probably maybe the account that's here can speak. All right, Signoro, I can see you're saying you can speak. When you have the mic, please contribute. And I'm hoping probably you are contributing, responding to the question that I just posed. Over to you, Signoro. Signoro, can you hear me? And are you ready to speak?
Hello. I presume I'm not ready to speak because not directly to the question that you raised. I wanted to make a fresh submission. Many thanks.
Okay, you wanted to make a fresh submission. Okay, but fine, that's okay. So, of interest, I would have liked to have Buphra comment, but I'm not sure what the challenge maybe could be. Buphra, are you ready to comment? Pupra, are you ready to comment, or you're facing any technical? If you're facing any technical challenges, please do send me a message. Just send them a message so that at least I know what is going on your end, and we keep the conversation going. But then in the meantime, I see DBT, you are requesting to comment, and I'm hoping probably you're responding to the question that I posed on the issue of participation inclusion in the process of recall. I know what the law is saying, and we all heard what was mentioned by Paida, but it would be interesting to find out how the masses are also, in what way are the masses involved in this whole process? Because these are the people who elected those parliamentarians to represent them. Over to you, Nkoskhona.
Thank you, Matabile. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, go ahead.
This is a very interesting and timely topic in my view, because in the WhatsApp groups that I am in from where I am in Bulawayo, this conversation has been ongoing. Excuse me, and it has been triggered further by the letter that was written by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works, stating a list of councillors in Bulawayo that have been recalled. So the conversation started again to then say, what should happen now, since the town clerk has been informed that there are vacancies there? So the bigger problem that we have is the electorate is not considered in this kind of conversation or decision making, as it were. While president fight, the grass is the one that suffers. The grass, in this case, the citizens of Zimbabwe or the electorate who chose their leaders are the ones that have another forced opportunity maybe to kind of like redo it again, and by way of voting again. So the major concern is what value maybe do our electoral processes carry in instances like these ones. I liked the way Paida, chronicled the history around these recalls and also the court challenges and the judgments that have been done. And you look at it from a perspective where the presentation made by Paida, there is less conversations about it, but it's a conversation that then reduces for the ordinary man and woman is what is who is Chabang, for example, what is Chamisa going to do, and why should we vote again, since we're not consulted, that these are not these people haven't even started working. But you look at it and say, Batabile, our conversations at times, because maybe we are civically engaged, are at a certain level, and possibly we are privileged to know some information by one way or the other. But the ordinary person who just registered as a first-time voter and they voted, to them they've done their bit. This idea of, okay, someone has written a letter who's an SG, and the others are saying it's not our SG, we don't have that office. It's more on the political space. But for the ordinary person, my question is, are they going to be, are we going to have people taking these processes seriously? You look at Bulawayo. Bulawayo is the least registered voters in Zimbabwe, and having a conversation about voting again is another thing. In by-elections in Bulawayo are the worst, the turnout is the worst ever. And now to think should we have elections maybe in 2028 again? What is our starting point to talk about civic participation, civic engagement? I'm looking at it from that lens as a voter educator myself, to then say some of these things we have no answers to the electorate, and political parties should do something about that and ensure that as they fight their own fights, they are able to then deal with them internally without affecting the electorate. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Nkosi. Well spoken for the people, and I can sense some passion in your submissions, that your interest is aligned to also my interest, that the voices of the people, they should also be taken seriously and be included in this whole process of recall. But then I'm thinking that probably Paida can be in the right position to shed more light if there is a possibility for the public to be involved in this process, because as highlighted by Nkosi, there are also developments in Bulawayo as a result probably of the recalls that are happening at a national level. Now we have a list of councillors that are also being recalled. Where are we heading? Are we going to be having elections all over again so that those positions can be occupied? That's food for thought. But I can see Signoro is raising his hand. Signoro, please go ahead and take the mic.
Many thanks, and once again, greetings to you, greetings to fellow Zimbabweans. I was gathering my facts on the question that you raised. First and foremost, I don't know why we are so hesitant to get involved in matters that concerns me, you, and all of us. Admittedly so, yes, we have got a constitutional crisis. But going back to your question, I don't think we need to think twice. We need to get involved. I beg to be corrected. These members of parliament were not elected by Nelson Chamisa. I'll have to be partial here. They were not elected by Emerson Mnangagwa or any political leader. They were elected by the people. That speaks to me, you, and all of us. We can speak of when the elephant fight the grass. So we are the grass. We're talking of a constitutional crisis which has got a vacuum, whether it's silent. But I think the question of it being silent or not surely takes me, you, and all of us. If you're being prejudiced, we cannot have people that we elect into parliament and their leaders bringing the whole nation to disrepute, and we watch. Then we might as well not talk about accountability, because we are the people, we are the electorate. So we must get involved. If the law, the no provision, I think we have legal experts that can facilitate or help us to find out how we can maybe come up with a court interdict. And I want to repeat, an interdict that speaks to stopping any such operations without, again, going back to the constituents. Many times decisions are made without, I wouldn't want to say full consultation, with no consultation at all. And as I learned, we need to guard our sovereignty, not just talk. Precedents are being set every day. We're looking at a situation, a precedent was set in 2017 where people were removed from a political party, which is a ruling party. It's not a secret. No meeting took place, which is actually a constitutional crisis. And we don't want to even talk about who was representing that cabal, representing ZANU-PF, who wrote the letter to the Speaker of Parliament. Of course, we can say bygones are bygones, but what precedents are we setting? So I think I've answered your question. We are the citizens. We are the electorate, and organized in an organized manner, more organized than the people that we elect. And instead of approaching it at law, they chant slogans. They don't approach it, in a manner that will find us not being held indefinitely, but at least getting back to work. We need to know. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen. Yes, definitely elections are coming. This is a well-orchestrated thing to create vacancies in parliament, and it's happening. We are still in denial, we are still doubting, we are still debating. It is happening, and unless we stop that operation, surely 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line, ZEC will be announcing that we are running a ballot to fill in the positions of those people that have been disengaged. I would like to yield my mic.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Ciro. Probably just a follow-up to your submissions. How can the citizens stop this? Since you are saying unless if the process is stopped, when it has been explained clearly by Paida here that they are actually the recall is following the constitutional guidelines.
Well, I'm not a legal expert, but I've already suggested that we've got legal minds. The court interdicts. Anybody can approach the court to stop this process. But I think a
All right.
more robust approach would be a well-organized citizens call, and I also want to be corrected. Are we not the beneficiaries? Who elected these people? Who is then removing them from office?
Yeah.
Then we can see.
Mhm. All right, thank you very much, Senior. So probably, Paida, to shed more light, in the case of an independent candidate being an MP, what is the legal procedure? Because if we're then going to be saying, by virtue of being part of a party, you can actually recall an elected official. What is the legal stance when we're looking at independent candidates? Like in the case of Themba Mliswa, when he was an independent candidate as an MP, what could be the legal procedure towards that? Does it mean that the constituents can write a letter and then they send it to Parliament so that he can then be recalled? What exactly can be done? Over to you, Paida.
Thank you, but as a matter of fact, it's impossible to recall an independent member of parliament
Mm-hmm.
because our constitution does not envisage that an independent member of parliament is coming from a political party, and only political parties have that right to withdraw a candidate, to withdraw their member. So if you're an independent MP or an independent councillor, it's more of a one-way street until your tenure ends. So there is unless if the independent member crosses the floor, which is to join another political party during the tenure of his seats, from being an independent to become a member of a political party, generally it becomes questionable whether by crossing the floor the seat should be declared vacant or not. In other jurisdictions, when someone crosses the floor, then their seat becomes vacant. So you cannot say you were elected as as a Triple C member and you join ZANU-PF, that seat becomes declared vacant. Neither can a ZANU-PF member cross the floor and join CC in Parliament while in Parliament elected, it becomes vacant. Or if there is an independent member to join either ZANU-PF or CC after they have been sworn in, that would also create a vacancy in many jurisdictions.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. I see Bupra is now on the call, and thank you and welcome. She was highlighting in my inbox that she was facing technical challenges, but I would like to welcome you to this conversation where we just looking at section 129 1K of the Constitution. And, having you, Bupra, here is actually very important because we're looking at the fundamental democracy principles of participation and inclusion, which are actually really key in the recent developments of the elected officials recall from CC and ZANU-PF. And of importance really is to try and understand from you that since you have been following the developments and you're also representing the citizens in their different constituencies, what have been the experiences or observations of MP recall in your constituencies? I would like you just to give us maybe some insights on that. Over to you, Duduzile.
Thank you so much, Bathabile, for the warm welcome, and apologies for entering in late into the space. I was facing a bit of technical challenges, but those have since been rectified. So you did highlight the fact that yes, we have experienced a number of issues when it comes to the recalls that have been happening. But the one thing that we need to understand is that the recalls that we're witnessing are not the recalls that we're seeing for the very first time. We did witness these recalls between the years 2018 up until 2023. And in 2022, we did see the coming in of by-elections based on the recalls that were there. So the one thing that we have noted as Bupra is the fact that recalls continue being a burden on their own. So this is how and why. So in an era, I have highlighted that being between the years 2018 and the years 2023. You'll notice that particularly at council level, some councillors were now burdened with the responsibilities of not only just being councillors in a single ward, they were now having that responsibility of then taking care of business in another ward because of the recalls that were there. So, but residents, as residents, basically, you know that there are certain demands that are there that come with the office of being a councillor, and better yet, especially when it comes to the level of a member of parliament. And the other thing that's there, Bata, is the fact that recalls also did come in as a surprise, particularly to the people who had exercised their voting rights on election day between 23 and 24 August 2023. So through being able to elect their preferred candidates, that is the surprise that came in, because when they voted, their assumption was, we are voting for the person that we prefer. We are voting for a candidate that we feel can represent our needs, can be able to represent us as a ward, as well as a constituency. The other thing about that's there is the fact that residents are still in shock by the recalls that keep happening, because when elections were being held, residents were the most precious cargo in the whole electoral cycle. But now that the elections have come and gone, you'll notice that residents are now being rendered powerless. They can't do anything about the recalls that are currently ongoing, because it seems like every day something has to be happening relating to recalls. Surprises keep coming in relating to the recalls that are still ongoing. We do not know whether they are still ongoing or they have come to their immediate end. One thing that about how you need to understand, as well as whoever is listening at this moment in time, is that Bulawayo Progressive Residents Association believes in consulting its residents, believes in consultations. Decisions that affect the people of Zimbabwe cannot lie with just one individual or just one political party, but it's a matter of being able to consult the residents who then are very much responsible for voting for the people of their choice when elections come. So basically, that is some of the experiences that we have noticed as BUPRA, especially when we are focusing on the recalls that have been happening from the era that I've highlighted and the recent ones that have happened in this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Juju Zide. These are very great submissions. And I'm seeing that you are speaking greatly on the issue of representation, on how the citizens are left out from this process when they're the ones who elected the electoral representatives. So probably maybe it would be interesting to find out if there is a way in which maybe inclusion can be part of the conversation through this process, because decisions are made and the most affected are the constituents. And it was greatly highlighted by Nkosi Kona, that issue. I know probably at legal level, as it has been highlighted by PIDA, the law says what it says, but the citizens, they also want to be included in this process, as it has been highlighted by BUPRA, who are in conversation and in contact with the masses on the ground. But before I continue probably with my analysis, I see Tapiwa, you requested for the mic. Would you have any submissions maybe that you want to echo in relation to the topic under discussion?
Yes, that's a quick one. I actually sort of just to get people to answer a small question. Was what I didn't understand was the primary elections that happened in urban areas, especially Bulawayo. I felt myself, I didn't vote myself, of course, because I'm abroad, but I felt that the system that was used to do the primaries, to actually put forward a candidate, for example, for councillor or MP, was faulty. And I think that's where all these problems are coming from. Because I remember they were talking about selection. They were talking about Berekamwana, They were talking about some very actually bordering illegal, actually going against the Electoral Act. Because, for example, Berekamwana is a system that uses people openly declare that I am behind this candidate. But our electoral law is clear about secrecy of votes. That's why we have like a box whereby people go in secretly or assisted. They go in there with one person. You are not supposed to declare who you voted for. It's against the law because it actually causes political violence because people are going to mutually intimidate each other. Because if I'm going to go behind a touch and then somebody else go behind, let's say, Ngosinati, and these are rivals, by default, that is intimidation because it depends on how strong I am to actually stand behind Kotat, because Kotat might not be liked by somebody in Ngosinati's line. And that's political, that's the same as ZANU-PF going into villages, beating up people. That's intimidation. You're actually manipulating a vote. And on top of that, there were other stages that happened after people had voted to actually do a further verification in courts that basically disempowered the electorate itself, the constituency, those who had voted, no matter how faulty it was further abused by actually having people going for further checks. I don't know what checks. And those people who were checking, who were doing a verification, whoever elected them to do or empowered them under the Electoral Act to do so, I don't see anywhere on the Electoral Act that says that when a vote is done in primaries, it has to go through further checks and like it's an interview process. That's not our democracy. That's not our democracy at all. And this is where all this problem are coming from. But I can see the residents of Bulawayo feeling a bit shortchanged because you can say, okay, they are the citizens, whatever you call them, and this is quite annoying because they're not the only citizens of Zimbabwe in the first place. So what I mean is, if you are in Cowdrey Park and you got an MP or a councillor who has gone through this very strange selection process, and the residents might be very suspicious. Why do we have to go through 3 stages? But our competition, which is ZANU-PF or the MDC, they just go in the ballot. They just use the normal ballot, and that's it. Whoever wins, that's it. Why the further verification? And there were complaints about this verification being done in Harare. But the elections were done in Bulawayo. Why did they have to go for verification in Harare? So yes, these are some of the things you have to look at when you further this discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tapio. You're raising very critical issues because you're questioning the constitutional the level of the constitutional process that was taken into place by CCC during the build up towards the elections and also the verification process of their candidates. Maybe since we have as panel Promise Kwananzi, he could actually be someone who helps us try and unpack some of the issues that you have raised, because you are arguing that those unconstitutional processes that were carried out are as a result of the challenge that we are facing today, where we are having a number of elected officials being recalled. Promise, are you on the call so that maybe we hear your thoughts into the submissions that have been shared by Tapiwa? Promise, are you on the call? Okay. I see Promise, he's not here. I don't know if also Farai Marapira has also joined the call, because maybe you may be using different accounts or different names. If you're on the call, please request for the mic so that I can see you here and I give you the mic. All right. So since I don't have any response in relation to that, can I allow Valentine to make his submission, and then we can have Rumbi follow? Okay. All right. Promise, I can see you are actually on the call. Welcome, Promise. If you can hear me, please go ahead and take the mic and respond to the question that has been asked by Tapiwa. Over to you, Promise. Promise, can you hear me? You may please go ahead and make your submissions.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Promise. Please go ahead and make your submissions. I'm not sure if you heard what Tapiwa was saying.
Yes, I did.
So that
I
maybe...
did.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, just to clarify that our primary elections were not governed by the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act governs the conduction of national elections. So I think that is where Tapiwa's mistake starts from. He is citing wrong documents altogether to try and understand or explain the processes that the CCC undertook to arrive at the candidates that we selected. The second point is that there is no uniform methodology of selecting candidates anywhere in the world. If you refer to leading democracies across the country, across the world, some of them, the political parties can literally handpick a list of candidates without any explanation. Some of them may do it based on seniority. Some of them may do it based on capability. It's really at the purview of that political party in question to agree on a method of candidate selection, as indeed happened with the CCC leading to the 2023 primary elections for selecting our candidates. And I can speak with authority because I was part of the process that agreed upon the candidate selection process and adopted it as a party in terms of our internal democracy. And secondly, I was also a participant in the candidate selection process, and I was not successful as a candidate, but I'm quite convinced that it was the most fair and most practicable way to select candidates in the present circumstances. What we had heard in the past when there was still MDC was primary elections which were conducted by members of the party, in particular activists of the party in the structure of the party. And what we would have there is one individual with a lot of money who would just come, bribe a handful of key leaders in the party structure in that particular ward or constituency. And what would end up happening is that the process would then produce a candidate that was popular with the narrow structure of the party as opposed to the broader, community. And that was a problem. That was a problem. And secondly, ended up with candidates with money rather than with the credentials that we were looking for coming out of that process. So what we tried to do was to broaden, to open up the process to let's talk about the Nketa, for example, as a constituency. We would then say, so the first stage was to say, we want the residents of that particular ward or constituency to come and make nominations of the people that they felt that would effectively represent them, rather than having the candidates say, I want to represent the people in this particular constituency.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, promise to cut you there because I also want to just also I've understood your response to the question that was posed by Tapiwa. So now I just want you to bring you into the context of the discussion to understand the stance of CCC when it comes to MP recall and its implication. What is the stance? We have someone who says is the interim of the SG post from CCC, who has recalled 15 officially elected leaders.
Mhm.
What's the stance? That CCC is taking, and what are the implications?
Well, the stance is very clear and straightforward. First and foremost, all candidates that were elected under the ticket of the Triple C are subscribed to the Triple C, and they were elected by the voters who knew full well that these were Triple C candidates. So there was no ambiguity on the part of voters who they were voting for. They were voting for President Nelson Chamisa as the presidential candidate alongside the MPs that were campaigning with him under the banner of the Triple C. So let's let that be understood. And secondly, we wrote to Parliament to say that accordingly, the corresponding channels between Parliament or Council, whatever it may be, with the Triple C, were supposed to come in accordance with the channels that we had advised them. Thirdly, we also wrote to Parliament and to Council to say that the Triple C, led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa, has not recalled anyone. We don't just recall people who have voted for by the people just like that. There has to be a process and a procedure. It has to come to the residents or the voters, discussed, consulted, and a significant number of voters must assent to that recall through a petition or signatures and so on and so forth. And it must then come to the party for deliberations in light of whatever accusations the MP to be recalled are leveled against them. And when it is agreed and the procedure has been followed, then the party can then say so and so must be recalled. And indeed, in the process of recalling, there has to be a letter written by an authorized official to correspond with Parliament in light of that recall. The second circumstance in which a person may be recalled is when somebody crosses the floor, just like you were mentioning earlier on. If someone crosses from Triple C, he was elected under the ticket of Triple C, he crosses to ZANU Ndonga, he crosses to ZANU PF, naturally that person ceases to be a member of Parliament under the banner of our party. In this instance, not a single member of MP has indicated any crossing over to any political party. They remain our members. They were elected under our ticket, and we want them to be reinstated immediately and unconditionally. And we would want to really, resolve this issue of recalls. I was listening to the Residents Association in Bulawayo there making a very fundamental point about underrepresentation caused by these senseless recalls, where an MP had to adopt another ward, another constituency, and then a councillor to adopt another ward. I think that is inimical to the democratic spirit and to the representation ethos that we seek to achieve in this country, and which the Constitution envisaged when it was written. This Constitution was not written to be vindictive and to use it to punish political opponents. The Constitution was written to uphold and promote democracy and representation in Zimbabwe.
All right. Thank you very much, Promise, for that, for those insights. So probably my question will be directed at Spider, and I recognize all the other speakers that are ready to contribute. The question is in relation to the submissions that have been made by Promise on the issue of recall. And he speaks strongly on how the process that has taken place recalling, they don't identify with it as CCC. But then there's something that you mentioned earlier on, Paida, where you were saying that by virtue of being a member of that party, one can actually recall the person from that party. And also from Themba Mliswa's submissions that I quoted earlier on, this is something that you also highlighted, that the section has that gap. It doesn't really mention who exactly from the party can recall MPs or councillors. By virtue of just being a member of that party, you can actually write and recall the MPs or councillors. What insights can you share maybe in response to that, Paida? Because I want to make sure that we understand the constitution.
Well, maybe before he comes in, just to interrupt you there, before he comes in, I think that if that is the case, then the 70 members that have been recalled by ZANU-PF, by one of their members or secretary general or whatever that person is, it should pass, isn't it?
Okay,
Oh,
so maybe
okay.
if he responds to that, it will shed more light once Paida sheds response to that.
All right. I think the first question which I spoke to was that the speaker has to satisfy himself that he's receiving a genuine letter. And that is at the speaker's discretion. That's what the law as it stands now says. And the Constitutional Court has interpreted it to mean that. The second point which I make, and I think I will make this on behalf of Veritas, we have been indicted and we looked at the question of recalls and we think it's inimical to democracy. And in our view, it is important that Parliament should look at repealing that section 129(1)(k) from the from our constitution, so that a political party, when an elected leader, they cannot be recalled. I think that should be the basis, because if we continue having that section within our constitution, it will be used and abused. And in this case in Zimbabwe, we've noticed that it has been abused more often than not. And I think we should equate these two, but we are in different jurisdictions to South Africa. South Africa has a different electoral system where people vote for political parties, and it's political parties which send in their representatives and they can recall them at any time. So if probably we want to have such an electoral system where people do not vote for individuals but vote for a political party, and probably that would also improve on proportional representation, to have proportional representation electoral system, and probably it would increase women participation and so forth. But it will give the power still to the political parties to recall their members if they think their members are against their wishes and so forth. And we've seen that South Africa, the ANC recalling even the president of the state. So it's a question where we should relook at our law and say what we want as Zimbabweans. But the view of the Veritas in this instance is that section 129(1)(k) should not have a position in our body politics, because it is cumbersome. It causes a lot of money and a lot of time, where we continuously get embroiled in the election mode. We are campaigning and doing what so forth, and nobody will really be implementing and delivering to the people, while people are fighting their own internal wars.
Okay, thank you very much, Paida. Well said. So I see some of the people that are actually following us here on our account. Please make sure that you follow us by virtue of being part of this discussion. Well, I'm requesting that you follow us on our account. That's AL Accountability Lab Twitter account. And then I can see Tapiwa raising your hand, but then as Tapiwa makes his submission, I want to follow up again, Paida, and say, you mentioned something also very critical by saying the speaker actually examines the genuinity of the letter. There were debates and concerns on social media platforms that some people were saying the letters that are submitted, they are not actually genuine. They are not officially coming from the party. And then there were also arguments that although they're not coming from the party, it is not the responsibility of the speaker to actually carry out the administration duties to verify. So where then does it land us as a people when there are now these dynamics at play, whereby the speaker, that's Mudeda in this case, is saying, I don't have the administrative responsibilities and duties to verify that this letter is genuine or not. But then I can see both Salani and Tapiwa are raising their hands. I will start with Tapiwa and then Bosalani will follow. Over to you guys.
Okay, I just want to quickly suggest, in response to the previous speaker, I would suggest, if I was to suggest anything, I'm not, of course, I'm not a legal person. I'm actually a construction, but I would suggest that if, let's say, a party wants to recall one of its representatives, whether council or MPs, why can't we? Because a councillor or an MP works for either parliament, or let's say just MP, he works for parliament. His boss is Mdenda. So I would want to see that contract not being touched, but that MP also has been nominated, has been sent, has been sponsored by a political party. So it's a completely different contract between that MP and his party, and the MP and parliament. So what I prefer, if the MP is to be recalled by his party, which means there is a problem between the party and him for whatever reason, they have to do it outside parliament so that they don't touch the mandate that this person is sworn in, has wasted all his resources, and is on the job. Now they recall him without him having done anything anyway. So if they want, they have to go to court. I would suggest that they go to court. If the recalls, I think there have to be a court decision to determine whether the recall is actually legal. And then I think that should be a court decision. And then when the party itself wins against its own candidate, then the result of the court are sent to the speaker to say, this person has been deemed to be unfit and we have successfully withdrawn him from the party. That should be done outside parliament. And then, of course, yes, the result of that court decision is now sent to parliament. And then that person, then ZEC and whatever, and then they are withdrawn. But this is very disruptive, and I don't think we can actually, even the United States or UK cannot afford that to be going to elections all over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ted. Well, over to you, Boselan.
Thank you so much, host. Can I just confirm if you can hear me properly?
Yes, loud and clear, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Great space as always. Great to see you promised. It's good to see you speaking out. I just wanted to say, my brother, promise briefly. There's this issue you spoke about, you participating in the, I guess, the Berekamwana or candidate selection in Triple C. I actually didn't know that, you know. And it poses the issue of why didn't we know Kuti Promise was also wanting to be a candidate for Triple C. It comes back to that whole issue of transparency and accountability. I would have happily supported you had I known. But also, when you say there were no problems with the Berekamwana or the candidate selection in Triple C, I think you become a bit unfair there, my brother, because remember, you still came up on top. You may not have gotten a position or been a candidate for a specific area or constituency, right? But you're the head of spokes. You were literally the spokes. So you came up on top. Do you understand what I mean? Unfortunately, it's not everybody who could be the spokes or to take up other positions. And having said that, I'm sure you can understand as well that there's no process in politics that can never be said it was great. There will always be some mistakes here and there. There will be people who maybe also be disgruntled. That's something that we can't take away. And because of that reason, it's also possible for us to say that those who are now sending Ana Chabangu, who are doing the recalls now, they've possibly got something to stand on. They might be disgruntled people within Triple C who didn't feel that the candidate selection worked well. And that's what's brought us here. So I just wanted to just say that quickly to you, Kuti. Let's look at those things. Let's have a wider view of what could possibly be the reason. But also having said that, thank you, Paida, for what you said there. I believe Marie calls is not a good thing. That's the honest truth. But there's always a situation where we need case in points. It's because of what's currently happening. Because let's not forget, Senator Monzora also had recalls in his own political party, but no one came and started to talk about it the way we're talking about what's going on with the CCC recalls. So I think there's always a situation where there'll always be cases that we refer to and then come back and say, but wait a minute, there's something that's not right here. Why is there so much people are able, especially if you're considered a member of a political party, to actually send a letter to the speaker, and then you have what we have here today. So definitely, I would like there to be more of protection for all political parties, not just CCC, but anyone in general. I mean, if you've been voted by the citizens, I mean, gosh, you're taking that vote away from citizens, right? They're citizens who defended their vote, irregardless of the environment, which was so uneven. They defended and they got their leaders where they needed to be. So it's quite unfortunate that that's happening. But also CCC, I feel there's a part where you also, as a political party, need to take responsibility for what is going on. It does not help. Like I said to you, Promise, I didn't know that you're a candidate. You know, there has to be more transparency. There has to be more accountability. We have to know who your leaders are. This strategic ambiguity can only work for so long. There comes a point where there will be holes. And as you see, people are now taking advantage of those loopholes. So it becomes a point, it's not good enough. It's not enough anymore for you as a political party in CCC to just know your people or to know your constitution. I can even ask the host of the space right now, does she know the CCC constitution? Does she know who's who in CCC? And if her answer is no, as it is for many people who I've communicated with, they don't know what's going on in CCC. So you can't also expect someone like the speaker, who's got his right to do something according to Mafungirawo at his pleasure, basically, to then be able to support CCC in the manner that you deserve. And you also mentioned something, as I land, Promise, when you were talking about the recalls for ZANU-PF. Now, I personally, as a Zimbabwean, am not aware of an interim SG in ZANU-PF. And therefore, the position alone is quite questionable. I'm like, when did they start having interim anything? Because the things are there for us to see. And this becomes, we can't also then argue that somebody, because remember, Promise, you are spokes of a political party. The moment you also say that someone wrote a recall letter for ZANU-PF people, you also have to know that, is that person real? Does that person exist? Does that position exist? Rather than running with narratives, because apayangwe narratives. And I would definitely expect more from someone who's representing a whole political party. I'll land there for now. Thank you.
All right,
thank you. Just to quickly respond to some of the issues that she raised. Well, I didn't say that the system was perfect. Far from it. We even knew that it would not be perfect, and there was an appeals procedure and all that. I didn't get to that because it's not part of this discussion. And we are not darking accountability. No, we will not do the darking. We are very clear. We are accountable. Primarily to the members of the party, but generally to the voters, speaking broadly. And I know that the question of leadership, the people know who their leaders are. The people that should know who their leaders are, they know who their leaders are across the country. That is why we are able to mobilize wherever we go. If we call for a meeting in Mbire today, there is a hierarchy that sends the message out there, and our people are able to be organized according to whatever we need to do. So it's not that there is no leadership; it's just a different type of leadership. And I see that the people of Zimbabwe are very fixated with leadership, with positions, rather than disposition of duty. And it's quite unfortunate that we've become so fixated on the position. Say, Saka Secretary Ndiani, who is the chairman, who is this, rather than to say what needs to be done, what are the roles that are out there, what are the tasks, and how can we effectively implement them, especially in the circumstances where we are dealing with ZANU-PF, which clearly aspires towards a one-party state, and which clearly aspires to decimate the opposition altogether. And we've
Okay.
seen that happening in the past. So we are
All
not
right.
ducking accountability. We have got the leadership. And lastly, before you cut me, we will be unveiling procedures and processes towards our own internal leadership, answering the leadership question internally, using our own processes, using our own terms and our own conditions. We can't move at the pace of ZANU-PF, what ZANU-PF want us to do. Why do they want those structures
right.
so badly? Why do they want ZANU-PF wants those
Thank you
to
very
know
much,
those structures
Promise,
so
for
badly?
those
And that's a
submissions.
question
Okay.
that we must
Sorry,
ponder on.
Promise. Thank you very much, Promise, for making your point very clear there in response to Boss Salani. So I think before because I would like that line of thought to just continue. I saw Boss Salani, you raised your hand when Promise was actually making his submission. So from what I'm picking up is that the issues of accountability and transparency with the strategic ambiguity, as it was raised by Boss Salani, and the concern probably is on that. Why not make it clear and obvious to the people that you represent, so that at least they know what vision that they are following from their leadership. But it was also going to be interesting to get from ZANU-PF that actually has structures and a constitution, having to realize that they also have 70 members of parliament that have been recalled, to understand their stance, because I don't think the argument should be on the basis of having probably a constitution and structure, but it should be based on what the section 129.1K says, where it was also highlighted that by virtue of just being a member of the political party, you can actually recall some MPs. But then maybe Boss Salani, you can come in and then we can have Tapiwa. I can still see the other guys who requested for the mic. I am coming for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, host. Thank you so much. Right. You know what? I want to appreciate, Promise, what he just said, but the people, who are the people? I've always asked this question. Pamunoti citizens, which citizens? Because I don't know who's who. You know, you understand what I mean? And if you say the people selected, yes, of course they selected. We saw Nelson Chamisa having rallies in which, and mind you, it might actually be a situation where people did not know certain people. Like, I'll give you an example, Pasho. Pasho literally was coming from abroad. He had not done any sort of work that I know of in a community for where he was vying to be a candidate. But when you see Nelson Chamisa show up and Nelson Chamisa says in a rally, this is your leader, this is the so-and-so, I truly believe that a lot of people in Triple C, it's not the work that people recognize that you did, but the fact that Chamisa gave you a stamp of approval. Chamisa showed up. Many people, they love Chamisa. It's something that you have to understand. They may not know who's who, but when Chamisa says, this is the person, this is the so-and-so, just like you Promise, you know, people may not have known you during your Tajamuka days, right? But because Chamisa has said you are the spokes, people are rallying behind you. I'm sure you can see the difference when you were part of Tajamuka and now. Because there's something chingori poche, as long as Chamisa says yes, anything goes. Anditika. Then the other part that I want to keep on saying and reiterating is the fact that when you are looking at the issue of these recalls, you cannot run away from the fact that you left a hole as a political party. The strategy allowed for someone to come through and say they are part of you. And there have been pictures, as much as Nelson Chamisa has said he doesn't know who Chabangu is, because it looks like Triple Simono Jita. You said that about Freddie, when he was going to see Job Sekala and doing all sorts. You Triple C people came through and said, well done, son, well done, change champion. He was even part of your Berekamana thing. But the moment he ended up appearing as, one of the double candidates, you ended up saying you don't know him. He's ZANU-PF, he's this and that. And it's starting to look like a situation when it comes to Triple C. If someone does not go with the norm in Triple C or the way things you want them to be done, already automatically Munoti Muzanu, Mu Infiltrator, what's the other one? Faz is the popular one. So what do you say with regards to that? Yes, my love.
Okay, thank you very much for those submissions. Promise, please respond, and then Tapiwa.
Okay. I just want to respond to the issue of Pasho. It would be unfair to say that the young man was just thrown in there. He's been in the party for so long. I think in some by-election he had contested as a councillor. was then deployed to school, because the party then also still has to continue developing skills internally. And everybody was much aware that he was forwarded to go and, advance his skills to come back and serve the party. And when there was, and you will know that Country Park was a very peculiar constituency. It was unlike the rest of the constituencies, and we really needed to take decisive actions in terms of who was going to stand against him, Thuli Ncube there. And I think the results vindicated us. And I like the point you make that these MPs that were there, they are CCC MPs, which is led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. It is well known, as you are saying, that these are candidates who were given the stamp by the opposition CCC led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. And it should then therefore follow that if they are to be recalled, it must be the CCC led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa that does so. And then in terms of you talked about Chabangu and Fred, let me tell you, if Chamisa were to know all the people that he takes pictures with, he would be beyond genius. To be honest, he takes pictures with millions of people across the country, and it's his policy to be open to citizens and so on and so forth. And I don't think that Freddie was disowned. I speak to him regularly. We had differences with him, and if you ask him, I've been interacting with him, advising. Remember, this is a political party. You have to join a political party. You have to subscribe to its ideology, its vision. And when you go against the vision of the party, it becomes problematic. In any political party, anywhere in the world, we should not be pretentious about this. This is a political party. It's not a civil society organization or something. It's a political party. It's people who say we are coming together under these values and principles with these objectives, and we are going to follow this direction together. The EFF has fired people, ZANU-PF has fired people, the ANC has fired people, Labour Party. As long as you are no longer in line with what the party directs, it's just the way political parties are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, my host.
Wait, sorry, Boss Salani.
No, host, it's through you. I just want to ask you.
Yes, do you mind holding that question, please, just for a second?
No, it's for you, the host. It's for you to say if he's going to answer later on. Say, the Accountability Hub Zimbabwe. Could you also ask how people get membership in CCC, please, if you could help me with that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Boss Salani. But I see there are new hands before we address that question. Prophet, can you please make your submissions? Tapua, I see your hand, but let's hear new voices. Prophet, the mic is given over to you. Prophet, are you with us? You can go ahead and speak. I see you. Unmute yourself. Okay, I see Prophet. Maybe he's having technical challenges. I'm not really sure. But Piwa, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick one again. I think what I'm saying, the internals, of course, I'm not privy to the internals of a political party. The spokesman might say, okay, we did this with the citizens. But when you look at this is happening only in Bulawayo. It's not like happening in Gweru or also or Masvingo, such that we might take it as a national problem, or because the processes of selecting representatives was done the same throughout the country. But why is this problem only sort of focused on Bulawayo and Masvingo? So that is a question that we should be asking. Because what I'm saying is that this is disgruntlement from the grassroots itself. Of course, yes, the way involved in those processes, but there are undercurrencies that, of course, the spokesman might not want to talk about. But there
All
are
right.
undercurrents whereby people feel that they were shortchanged. I think
All
that's
right.
my
Thank you, Tapiwa.
premise.
Thank you so much. Very critical points that you're raising right there. I see the villager, you just joined, and I'm sure you have a contribution. And Chipo, I see your inbox. You're saying you raised your hand. Let me give you access to the mic as Village is making their contribution. Over to you, Village.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Villager, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to respond to Promise. Promise made mention. He said that the people of Zimbabwe are fixated in positions. I mean, like, instead of what needs to be done. For us to know what needs to be done, don't we refer it to the person who is in charge? Like, for instance, you are the SG. That's a position. We fixated on it, and whenever there are issues of communication, we ask you. So that's the only inference that I wanted to make. Thank you so much. That's the only thing. So, at times I ask myself, if we're looking at the term democracy, does it actually really work in our country? Because I tend to wonder at times. But again, for members of the CCC, you have this condescending type of tone.
It's 8:83. Peter, please close your mic. Thank you. Go ahead, Villager.
Okay, no, sorry. That is the only thing that I wanted
Okay,
to say. That
all right.
Please, when people are asking these questions, you need to, genuinely respond to them, not to tell them that they are only fixated on positions. No, we have to, and we have the right to question all these things. I mean, at the end of the day, we are the citizens, aren't we? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Maybe before Promise comes in, I see there's Shaq, there's Shrek, sorry, and then we have at 83 Peter. Please make your submissions. Maybe there could be questions that Promise can take at once. And then I can see also Signoro and Wove. So at 83 Peter, if you are ready, please make your submission, followed by Signoro, and then we can have Wove. Over to you guys.
Okay, I was wanted to ask you, is it necessary at this point to appoint a position to someone? Because I see if you appoint someone for a position or to kuratidza structures enyu, at this point it's gonna cause attacks from ZANU-PFs. So I don't think so it is possible to point someone why didn't illustrate or same kuratidza structures enyu kuvanhu, or say musiri kuappointa ma leadership kuti uyu ndinenge. If you look back,
all right, thank you very much. It's 83.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. I got your point where you're talking about the issue of structures and how probably it's a strategic position by CCC to avoid the infiltration. Signora, please go ahead, take the mic, and then we go to Holly.
Yeah, just a quick one. An eloquent response to Villager. Democracy doesn't work in Zimbabwe. It doesn't. It can work in an ideal situation where there are ethics, because these things that we are talking about, keeping us busy, it's an ethical conduct where people manipulate the law. Promise Mkwananzi, appreciate you are here.
Thank you.
People of Zimbabwe are tired of going on conspiracy lines, and I think this is a message that should go to you as a spokesperson, to Nelson Chamisa, and again follow suit to all political leaders.
Yeah.
We need answers. I'm not done. I've not asked my question.
Okay.
So
go ahead, Signora, and ask your question.
My question to you, what's in it in leadership? Is it about power? Is it about money? Or it's about representing the people? And I think it is about representing the people. So the question is, why do you take the electorate people for a ride? There are a lot of things that we would like to speak about, not necessarily on this space, which I don't think you are being honest and open to say what really transpired in Matabeleland and the issue of sidelining other party members and the sudden emerging or mushrooming of Tabeng, who is now putting the whole country to dispute. You're not giving us the nitty-gritties. Why can't you take advantage of this moment as the spokesperson and tell us what exactly is going on and how are you going to avert this problem which you are now facing of replacing these candidates? Of course, the ruling party wants to achieve nothing else but a 2/3 majority. I yield my mic for now.
Thank you very much, Signoro. And then I'll take over and then give you the mic, promise to respond to the questions that have been raised. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, host. Promise, Mukwananzi, I welcome you, my brother.
Thank you, boss. Thank you.
I also like to give a disclaimer. It's not an attack on you. It's not an attack on President Nelson Chamisa. It's just a simple conversation.
True.
I've got 3 questions, Promise. I hear you speak about the issues of Zimbabweans focusing on the positions rather than what needs to be done. We can't really separate the two, Promise, because role specifications are very clear as they give us an indication of who does what. And I'm sure from any project management perspective, you'd understand that role specification becomes very critical and very important. So my first question is, do you guys know in CCC who does what, or it's dog's breakfast? That's question number 1. Question number 2, is President Nelson Chamisa open to leadership challenge? If yes, why hasn't he called the spill yet within the caucus in CCC? That's my question number 2. Question number 3 and the last question. I asked you before, Promise, in Salani's space. I said, is there collegiality in the party? And you said the cockpit is watertight. That was before the Chabangu issue. I'm going to pose the same question again. Before you came here on the space today, did you consult with the leaders like Tendai Biti, Professor Welshman Ngube, and also President Nelson Chamisa? And as I land my question, is there bad blood between President Chamisa, Professor Welshman Ngube? When was the last time they both spoke, even including Comrade Tendai Biti? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ove. Over to you, Promise.
Well, yeah, quite a cocktail of questions from all corners. Very valid concerns indeed. And just before I answer, I think we need to assure the people that we are, as a political party, well-meaning, and we are doing what we are doing in the best interest of the people of Zimbabwe, and doing the best we can to safeguard this project, the people's project, the Citizens Coalition for Change, from abuse, manipulation, and exploitation, in particular from ZANU-PF, because at the forefront of the call for the CCC to disclose literally its entire strategy is ZANU-PF. They want to know everything about the CCC, and it becomes very curious on our part, and we try our best to try and play clever there. I'll start with the last 3 questions because I think I find them to be very interesting. The roles, I think that the leaders are quite clear on the roles that they're supposed to be doing, and they are actually executing those roles. The problem comes when ZANU-PF is not aware who is doing what in order to buy that person or disrupt whatever those people are doing. You know that we've got cluster leaders in every, I think 3 plus or minus 3 districts. They come together. They have cluster leaders who lead that and who also report at the Citizens National Assembly. in terms of the work that they're doing. And that made it very easy because previously the province and this provincial chairman had to go. You've got provinces like Midlands and Marsh East, which covers vast territories of land. And with the limited resources that the party has, we felt that it was more prudent to then make smaller clusters of 3 or 4 districts together, with the district leader coming in, particularly from those areas, to minimize movement and to cut down on costs. So there is clarity in terms of what needs to be done and who does what. And you remember that this was a structure that was put in place to move into elections. There was no time for many things. We'd just been consummated. We went into by-elections. From by-elections, we were already preparing for elections. And we needed some structure to enter into Congress with, and I think into the election, with. And I think that it has done very well. And I said earlier on that there are reflections and discussions now in terms of our own process of coming up with sort of a permanent leadership and leadership structure. The second one is whether President Nelson Chamisa is open to challenge. Well, you might want to know or remember, if you already know, that President Nelson Chamisa was actually subjected to the nomination process as well for the presidential candidate. It was not automatic. The nominations were opened. I think in some areas, 1 or 2 provinces, you had other candidates nominated by the citizens of Zimbabwe. Some of them declined, I think, because of the overwhelming nomination for President Chamisa. Some felt that it would be an exercise in futility, but it was open he was open to challenges, and indeed that happened. And I'm sure that as we move forward, that's going to be a part of our political culture as an organization. The last thing that you asked is there cohesion in the party? I would want to prefer cohesion in the party rather than to look into individuals and personalities, to say that is the party intact and moving in the right direction and leaders moving together in that direction. I think that there is sufficient. Of course, there will not be 100% cohesion, but there is sufficient consensus to build from and to move the party forward. And then somebody said that the things that are happening are because of disgruntlement in Bulawayo. I'm not so sure disgruntlement of who, because if the people of Bulawayo were not happy with the candidates that the party produced, I'm sure they would not have voted for Triple C. We have had scenarios when we're analyzing results where you do see that surely in this area, I think that our people are not happy with our candidates, and it reflects itself on the results. You've got a situation where the president scores 9,000, councillor wins in their ward, but the MP performs poorly. Then you know that there was a problem with that particular candidate. But those are details for other platforms. But I'm just trying to show you that we have taken quite a comprehensive analysis of the results to see where we went wrong and which candidates were unpopular and for why. They of course, we said, we agreed earlier on that the system was not perfect. And there are instances where it produced maybe a candidate who was not as popular or where the other issues, and it reflects on the results. And that reflection is absent in the case of Bulawayo. So it is not the voters who are driving this thing. The voters are tired of voting. We've also agreed on that. They've been voting and voting and voting. And just to conclude, my sister, they've been voting, and now and they have to vote again, and so on and so forth. The last thing that I want to talk about is that I think I was misunderstood when I said we are fixated with positions rather than the disposition of duty. And I agree with the other speaker who said we cannot separate the two. And indeed, we cannot separate the two in terms of, the theoretical, organizational theoretical frameworks that he was using. But remember that this is also a peculiar circumstances we are operating in. You cannot take an organizational framework that works at the United Nations in Washington, D.C. and try to, I'm not saying it's wrong what you did or undermine, but I'm just trying to show you that we must then tailor make those theories to fit the local context, which is a combative operating political environment.
All right, thank you very much, Promise, for all those responses to the questions that were raised by the participants that are here present. I also want to appreciate everyone who took time to join us for this space today, where we are deciphering the impact of Section 129, 1K, focusing on voter rights. Also, in appreciation of Promise Mkwananzi, I also like to appreciate Tutuzile Matema from Bupra. She made really uploadable submissions in relation to voter participation and how they are not included in the process of a recall, whereas they're the same people who actually voted the MPs and councillors into power. I also like to appreciate Paida Moyo for the time that you took to come and give us the legal perspective, and also just breaking down the facets of Section 129, 1K in the context of today's topic. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to have the ZANU-PF Information Director, Farai Marapira, who had confirmed that is going to be part of the conversation, but unfortunately he's not here. But if you are here and you're using a different account or you sent a representative, please highlight probably in my inbox so that we also include you in the conversation. Me saying that doesn't mean I'm closing the discussion. We'll end the discussion at 12, and I can see there are some people who are requesting the mic to make their submissions. And I can also see the comments that are coming in where people are saying, but tablet, do not forget to ask this question. I'll definitely ask the questions that you are actually bringing forth. I'm also appreciating the people who are taking time to follow us here on Twitter. Thank you very much. For those who haven't, please make sure that you follow us on Twitter so that you don't miss out on any of our conversations or any information that we share as Accountability Lab in our effort to promote participation, inclusion, accountability, transparency, and good governance. So I see their hands here. I have Matthew. I would like to give you the mic to share your contribution to this discussion in to better understand the process of recall and how probably it's representing the voters' efforts to go and vote in for those people who are now recalled, unfortunately. So yeah, over to you, Matthew. Please share your contribution.
Okay, thank you so much. To me, my question that I just want to ask a spokesperson is not necessarily about the structures per se and so forth. Me, I'm concerned about the assets of the party, like the website and sort of things. Like we don't see so much on your hand, Renee, on Triple C, where you publicize to say this is our website where our information is available. Do we have a website, a correct Triple C website, which is the right one, not these other ones that we saw previously? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. And then I also have George T. I'll take 3 questions in the interest of time so that at least people have an opportunity to interact. George T., you have the mic. Please go ahead and ask your question. And then probably as George T. is asking his question, I would like to also relay the other question that was asked by Boss Salani on how people can become members in the CCC. Probably that's another question that you can take, Promise. Over to you, George. George, you have the mic. You may go ahead and make your contribution. Okay, I'm not sure why George is not responding. Seke, I've given you the mic. Please make your contribution.
Thank you very much. Mine is a question to the speaker or to anyone who represents Triple C on this space. I think I see Gift of Salos here. Right. My question is, we all know that recalling MPs and councillors is a disruptive action. So we know they've gone to court. The court can go either way. They either can win or lose it. My question is, what is the party doing at the grassroots where Shabangu says has been is elected or selected by the people? So my third question is that what is the party doing on the grassroots, maybe to disown the people themselves, to disown this Sengezo? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Seke. I can't seem to see Promise. Maybe something happened there, but then probably I will take my last question from Dr. Tadini. You have the mic to speak, Doc. Please go ahead and make your submission, and then Promise will respond to the questions. Over to you, Dr. Tadini. Okay, I don't know. Probably you're facing technical challenges too, because you have accepted the mic, but you're not speaking. But then very interesting questions there that have been raised. Yes, Prophet, I see you're raising your hand. Please make your submission.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon to you all. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. I wanted to make my submission as a resident of Bulawayo, is that in everything that is happening here, no one considers us. You know, everything that happens, these political parties, both ZANU-PF and CCC, they don't consider how their actions, they affect us. And even in the things that are important when it comes to decisions of the interest of Bulawayo, it seems like we are left behind. And even when we look at how things are as in our city as Bulawayo, you can tell that we are left behind. So these recalls is how they've happened, and they are affecting our city and the service delivery also in our city. It is something that our political parties have to look at and really see that they are not doing us justice. They are not doing us justice as the city of Bulawayo. They have to resolve whatever squabbles they have somewhere else, not in our city. Right? They have to do these things in other places, not in Bulawayo, because we are not consulted of anything. As I have said in other spaces, that I don't even know the councillor of where I am, and the MP, I have never met him. I don't know him. I only saw him on election day. Right? So those things also have to be addressed. Please, people, they should stop making these funny decisions in our city. They should let us, as the citizens and the residents of Bulawayo, have a say and also have a part in the leadership of this city. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Prosper, for those submissions. Promise is not on the call. I'm not sure if he's there down below, but please request for the mic or any other person from CCC to respond to some of the questions that have been asked. Very critical. One is asking, where can information about CCC and the activities that are being done be found? Is there an official communication platform where people can actually go and access the information, so that at least there's no strategic ambiguity, and also everything is just transparent and they're accountable to the constituencies that they serve? And then also the issue of someone is saying the issue of recall is actually really destructive. There's no progress, and this is also supported by Prophet. So maybe since Bupra is here on the call, I'd like to find out maybe what are some of the sentiments on the ground in terms of how the people are affected by the issue of recall. What have you observed on the ground, and what are some of the suggestions maybe you would recommend to the leaders that are here present, to the different parties that are here, party representatives that are present, to try and solve the situation so that we don't see more political leaders recalled? They are supposed to be serving the constituencies, but now they are recalled. As it's been highlighted, it's a setback. So maybe what are some of the issues you've recognized, and what's the best way forward? Over to you, Bupra.
Thank you so much, Batabile, for that one. Yes, indeed, it is a setback. The recalls that continuously happen in the country are a setback when we're looking at the democracy of the country as well as the governance of the country. So the context already, Batabile, that these recalls are happening is one context that we cannot run away from. Already there are budget consultation meetings that are ongoing across the country, as well as the issue of the cholera epidemic that's there. We cannot run away from that. And already when other wards no longer have councillors, other constituencies no longer have members of parliament, what happens in the instance where budget consultations need to be taking place, as well as the issue to deal with the cholera epidemic that is currently in the country? It's such instances where you feel residents are no longer being taken into consideration in terms of them being consulted, because at this point in time, it now feels they are left on their own to deal with the challenges that are on the ground. In as much as we highlighted earlier on that during the 2018 to 2023 era, we did witness a situation whereby one councillor ended up having more than one ward that he or she was now responsible for because of the recalls that were there. So that is the context that is already there. And in Bulawayo, there is the ongoing water challenges that are there. And already solutions need to be brought into book. But solutions cannot be brought into book when already there are quite a number of issues to do with recalls, and the fact that leaders are not there to be able to address these issues, because currently we'll be then waiting for the by-elections that we have not been informed about in as far as these recalls are concerned. So as recalls are happening, one thing, Bata, that we need to understand is that decision-making becomes very much compromised. So if we're looking at it from a parliamentary level, parliamentary portfolio committees still sit and decisions continue being made. And some of these decisions are being made on behalf of the constituencies where recalls took place. Because in as much as the recalls have taken place, by-elections have not been held as yet, right? So that people miss out on any developmental initiatives that may take shape during the time when there still will be a vacant seat until the by-elections are carried out. And the other thing, Bata, that we're noticing, in as far as these recalls are concerned, is the fact that there now is a lack of effectiveness from the elected officials who have not been recalled. The reason why we're saying that there is lack of effectiveness is the fact that there now is fear that is now there from the elected officials who are still in parliament, as well as those who are still in local authority. Because the issue that is there is the fact that there is that fear of them not being able to move necessary motions in parliament, or even necessary motions within the local authority, with the fear of saying, if I say a certain thing, I may be recalled. Or probably if I choose not to say anything, I will also be recalled. So already that compromises on the effectiveness of the leaders who are currently there. And the other thing, Bata, that is there is the fact that recalls did not just affect representation, but the present challenges will also birth voter apathy among the people and among the citizens of the country. So there is a loss of confidence in the electoral system and the order of legislation, so that people feel disrespected, and some will end up losing interest in exercising their democratic as well as their constitutional rights and as far as voting is concerned. And then you did highlight the fact that what are some of the initiatives that we feel can be able to speak into what can be done better in as far as recalls are concerned. But the one thing that needs to be done is to ensure that Section 129K is as clear as possible, because already as it is, it's very vague, because there are some elements that of the section that do not highlight who from the party is supposed to be recalling the member of parliament, as well as a councillor from a local authority. And also the other thing that needs to be taken into consideration is the issue to do with transparency. We highlighted earlier on the fact that citizens as well as the people were supposed to be consulted. There is no way you can just wake up and just recall a person who just entered into office. It's barely 3 months in which these recalls were taking place. And what benchmark are you really setting here in terms of you're saying that probably they did not execute duties accordingly. They hardly had 3 months where you can say, okay, they were supposed to be having consultations with member of the residents, or rather with the constituency, and they were falling short in that regard. So
All right.
any recall of elected representatives, Bata, should comply with section 68.1 on the right to administrative justice. And immediate reform of the recall process by including procedural fairness and involving residents in the recall process in view of section 3.2 of the Constitution on the respect of the people of Zimbabwe, from whom the authority to govern is derived. And the other thing, Bata, that I will conclude by saying is that the power to recall should come from the people and not from the political parties. Here's why. The power that people have is tried and tested during election period. That's through the ballot. What then comes after is disregarded, as noted through having the people not being consulted and not involved in the process when recalls are now concerned. So political parties are now using their in-house feuds, disputes through these recalls, and that should not be happening. So the power of recalls should be coming from the people and not from political parties. Disputes and feuds should not be used through the recalls. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Juju. In view of my time, I'll just take the last 3 hands. I see Dr. Tadini, I had given you the mic earlier on. You may go ahead and make your submission. Then we'll have Hulu and Shrek. Over to you.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that the speaker, the spokesperson, is no longer there. But I will still just pose the question because it was more of a question than a submission. Hopefully, he will entertain it later on at some other stage, or those that lead the party might. The question is, the current structure, whatever it is, I think he tried to explain it vaguely, and the current strategy, which has been termed ambiguous, were all implemented to prevent things such as recalls. They were all implemented to prevent things such as what we saw in the 2019-2020 period, right? They were also implemented as a means to ensure a victory and to counter ZANU-PF rigging. Has the structure failed? Has the strategy failed? And if it has, have they come to account to the constituencies that they assured that this will not happen? Because the problems that we're facing right now is exactly what they had set out to prevent. These recalls are not the first, and their response to the recalls is not different. May 2020, you had people being recalled from parliament because of opposition disagreements. You had the parliamentarians also boycotting, therefore disadvantaging their constituencies, as my sister has already stated, the previous speaker. You see, we see the same response in 2023. You have disputes, whether they are now being fanned by ZANU-PF or they are the actual creation of ZANU-PF, and you have the same response. Parliamentarians boycotting or disengaging, which is the new term. So the question is, what you set out to do and what you promised to do and the methods that you applied to do it, have they failed? And if they have failed, have you come to account to your citizens so that we do not create voter apathy for 2028 or whenever it's going to be necessary? I think it's going to be necessary soon if the court case doesn't go as opposition would want. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. Hulu, do you have something burning? And Shrek, Signoro, Swati, I see you guys requested for the mic. And I can also see Rumbi. Just in a second, please make your contributions. I hope they are concluding and not really opening up the discussion further, because unfortunately some of my panelists are not on the call anymore. Over to you, Rumbi. Over to you. Yes, over to you, Rumbi.
Okay,
Thank
maybe.
you. Thank you, Horst, for giving me an opportunity on your show. I just want to say that we tend to complicate things as Zimbabweans. We tend to over complicate things. Strategic ambiguity was never a strategy. It is a tactic. And that tactic, they said, was supposed to move up until the elections. Now the elections are over. Why do you still need strategic ambiguity? I want to encourage our people. If you want people to trust you and to vote for you, they must learn from our constituency in Chiredzi. I can assure you today, if Nelson Chamisa is going to say, guys, these are the donations that we received as a political party, the Citizen Coalition for Change from the People. And this is what we have done with the money. This is me, Nelson Chamisa, the leader of the Citizen Coalition. And this one is so and so. This one is so and so. And we do this, we do. There is not even a
to articulate and set the the room as to what they are doing as a political party, because for me there are a lot of bloodlines that needs to be cleared, and I hope they cannot dick and die, sorry to use that term. It's time for us.
The country falls under ZANU-PF country
and stop any such operations. I think we need to take a legal stance. The leaders, they belong to the people, and talking alone will not yield any results. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Signoro. Rumbi, sorry, that time when I gave you the right to speak, you ended up speaking at the same time as Signoro. Please go ahead, ma'am, and make your submission.
All right, thank you very much. And I'm sorry, the last time my network dropped. Okay, so I think for me, I'm going to look at it from this angle. We are all Zimbabweans here. Before we become, you become an MP, or you fall under CCC, or you fall under ZANU-PF, or whichever political party, we are human beings. Our problems in Zimbabwe knows no political party, knows no Chamisa, knows no Mnangagwa. But unfortunately, all falls on Mnangagwa and his party, ED, because they have been the people that have been in power since 1980. All our challenges we have in the country falls under ZANU-PF. So it would be foolish for us to spend our time attacking one another, try to squeeze oil out of where we know we cannot get the oil out. The people that are dividing us in Zimbabwe are ZANU-PF people. And when I say ZANU-PF people, I'm actually being unfair, because not everyone in ZANU-PF is benefiting from all this chaos. There are a number of people in ZANU-PF who are thugs in Bava, gangsters who are using us as a weapon to keep themselves looting in Zimbabwe. So for me, I'm like, whenever we start attacking and say there's no, that parliament or that one happened, all these are simply wasting our time. We must all know that sooner or later, all of us, some of us in all the places that we are in foreign lands, we don't even have time with our family members because of few people who have decided that they only want to live a fancy life. They want to live a fancy life, number one, that they cannot afford. Number two, at the expenses of the masses. We're kept at ransom by a number of men and women who are living a luxury life. Before we talk about Nelson Chamisa and talk about any other political party, let's look at the problem that we have from the grassroots. Because the day we are going to remove Nelson Chamisa or maybe ZANU-PF and CCC, these are simply political banners. We can remove them. It once been MDC, but Makasia and MDC and Guamarara, Makamove CCC. Mangwana political party. The same guy even who make sure to terrorize peace. People that are losing peace here is not the political parties. It's our people right now in the rural areas who are suffering in poverty. It's the country, guys, that is being destroyed into nothing. And you heard what Mutango said when he spoke about the issue that they want to build an airport for whoever the billionaire they're claiming is. It has nothing to do with the billionaire. It has to do with them. Try to give themselves the life they cannot afford at the expense of the masses. These people have looted the country to nothing. And then my submission is, instead of us spending our time attacking one another, can we be honest Zimbabweans and say, who is really our real enemy here? and confront the real enemy, because otherwise we are going to be talking about this again in 2028. And then I think it's about time that we remove my political parties' banners and say, takuda kudila nempava dzatitambuza muZimbabwe, because right now tange tivano kidnapper, we are holding ransom like tinopenga. We're spending our time talking basa panaba. Right now we're supposed to be spending our time talking about innovation. What can you do to build this school? What can you do to change the life of the young? What can you do to remove people who are dragged in the streets? But here we are. Right now, we're celebrating the background. Oh, they use this as a dead cat strategy. Who drop a nonsense to mania to tukana to shout and to blame. And Mangwana would drop another dead cat strategy until we are wise enough to say, but these people are wasting our time. And let's rise up against this nonsense, and then we must stop it once and for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think on that note, I will close the space. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been amazing, and your submissions, they were very critical because you raised very important accountability and transparency issue in view of the electoral candidates recalls that have been taking place both by CCC members and also by ZANU-PF members. So I think in view of that, I'll just want to appreciate the time that you took to come and make the submissions. The reason why I'm closing the space is because when we pass 2 hours, it crashes. And I don't want it to crash and then I lose this valuable content that you have shared with me this morning, now leading into an afternoon. But guess what? We're going to have another Twitter space next week where we're going to be focusing on natural resource governance, primarily focusing on just energy transitions. These are other concerns that have been raised by the public through our research under the Civic Action Team. We have highlighted some of the challenge, accountability and transparency issues that have been as a result of natural resource governance. And I strongly encourage you and would like to invite you to be part of the Twitter space so that we explore the best way towards the desired Zimbabwe we all want. Thank you very much. My name is Batabile Dlamini, and it's been great. It's been a pleasure. Let's stay tuned and let's stay connected. Have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you very much.